Controversy: many kids want this as a gift, but many parents worry it could harm their eyes. So, today we're going to do two things test. If this is really strong and open it up to see how it works. This gel gun became a craze at the end of last year. It shoots some really tiny balls that swell up when you put them in water, and it's a mix between paintball and airsoft. It's electric, charges via USB, and works like a machine gun, shooting lots of little balls per second. How does this little gun work? Let's check the box. The small gun just has two buttons. One is for shooting. If you press it slowly, it only fires one shot, and if you press it harder, it turns into a machine gun. The second button turns it off and prevents it from shooting, serving as a safety feature. Up here is a hole to attach another piece. I'll tell you right now, everything is made kind of like this. The fitting here is really bad, and you can't really tell how to open it. The other day, I tried to fit it in. The little piece fell off from here. I couldn't find that little nut anymore. And then, you have to try to fit the hole into this opening. Here in this thing, here, goes the ball reservoir, which is like a plastic bottle shaped like a grenade. And then you can load it with these gel balls. In a bit, I'll talk more about them. We did a little bit here. You come and press here. Basically, it's already ready to shoot. So let's turn it on, right? It's failing, right? The reservoir moved. I told you this thing didn't work properly. Now I think it will. It worked. Inside the box, there's also this little bag full of these tiny balls, which are the ammunition. This is very similar to Orbeez. Those little balls people put in plant pots to keep the water in the plant. But the final result, the little ball, is a bit smaller. It's tiny so it can fit inside the gun. And I think this thing is the big secret because these little balls are really slippery, which makes them flow very well inside the gun. Each of these bags here holds 10,000 liters. The chemical secret behind it is that it's probably made of the same material as diaper absorbent. We've already shown this stuff on Manual do Mundo. It's a polymer that can absorb a lot of water. It's a super absorbent for water. Sometimes hundreds of times its own mass, its own size. And that's why you throw a tiny bit of this little ball into a container of water and it ends up turning into this. Here we made a time lapse so you can get an idea of how this thing can suck up, can bring the water inside itself. Let's see how much the volume of the ball increased. I'll measure it first. 1.9 millimeters, 6.8. Remember, what I want to compare is the volume, the space the ball occupies. The formula for the volume of a sphere is 4/3 of pi times the radius cubed. What am I going to do with all this calculation here? Turns out that the big ball is 64 times larger than the small one. Look how much it expanded. While the gel ball over there is a fan of water, there's something new from Insider that repels water. It's their new pants, the future form. One obvious thing is that they'll keep you drier if you get caught in a little rain. But an advantage that few people think about is that because of this, they're much more resistant to stains. If you spill grape juice on your pants, it slides right off and is easier to clean. As for the rest, I don't need to explain, right? It has a minimalist design. It's cool. It doesn't fade. It smooths out on your body, and it's super comfortable. And there's a detail that I think every pair of pants like this should have, which is the zipper on the pocket. So if you're worried about losing things, or you're going to walk somewhere crowded, it keeps your stuff safe. To buy your futuristic pants, just go to Insider's website and use the coupon code Manual do Mundo to get 12% off. I've been testing it here for the last few days, and it's totally approved. You won't even notice you're wearing it. Just don't forget and leave the house without it, all right? It also comes with some Nerf darts here. But I don't think they're all that great, because theoretically, this little uses gel balls. And when you run out of gel balls, you can put the dart right here at the tip. It also shoots, but I think it comes out kind of weak. As a Nerf shooter, it's okay, but it's a good gel ball machine gun. Also included is a barrel that theoretically attaches to the tip, but you'd need to take the tip apart first. We initially thought it was a silencer, but it doesn't silence anything. It says it means shooting competition, but I don't know. This thing helps improve the aim. Not even in the manual does it say that it came with this thing. There's also a battery charger, which is a kind of thick USB. Probably has a power supply in here or something like that. And the battery is hidden down here. Look, it's this tiny little thing. You can take it out and attach it to the USB. And lastly, it comes with safety glasses, which I think is cool, but let's agree on one thing. You have to protect the eyes of the person in front of the gun more than the one behind it. And there could be several people in front. So you'd need, I don't know, maybe a dozen safety glasses, right? This thing is known for hurting eyes, yet it's popular with kids. Gel guns have already left more than 50 people injured. Gel gun wars have become a craze in the outskirts of Recife, with more than 50 people injured in the eyes. Gel guns are not considered toys and can be dangerous, says a specialist. The Brazilian Society of Ophthalmology warns about the risks of gel ball guns. Let's test it to see the damage. We started with the thinnest thing, a tissue paper, and there's no way the gel balls. They break everything, they pierce through, even when shooting from a long distance, I learned. In the end, there was practically nothing left, kind of destructive, right? When we set up the target with regular paper, you notice that the first shots don't go through anymore. But as the regular paper wears out and gets wet, the same thing happens as with the tissue paper. Next, we put up the cardstock, which is much thicker. And by the sound, you can tell the impact is strong and the same thing happens. Regular paper falls apart when it gets wet. Styrofoam. It's different. It's hard to make a hole, but it quickly gets marked and then breaks apart. And with the aluminum can, we thought nothing would happen. We didn't really believe in the little gun, but it started to dent the aluminum. And as it keeps bending, it starts tearing, and in the end, it gets really messed up. It's just fast. Lastly, we tested it on colorless gelatin, a kind of ballistic gelatin. Here, the first shots bounce back, but the gelatin starts tearing. And it's a bit scary to think that what happens to the gelatin could also happen to our eyes. Let's be honest, let's go with the can one. I didn't expect it to be so strong. Actually, it was much more violent than I imagined. We can measure two things here, using a cell phone and some editing equipment. The first thing is how many little balls this releases per second. I took a small part of what we recorded, put it here in the video editor, and cut out exactly 1 second. And then we can see by the audio, by those little waves that form in the audio file, how many shots were fired. Look, in just 1 second you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shots per second. That's a lot. The second test is much cooler, which is the speed at which the ball comes out. This one is more complex. I'm going to take a big wooden ruler and mark it every 10 centimeters because I'm not sure if I'll be able to see the original markings on the ruler in the final video. We'll set up slow motion recording of the little gun shooting, then review the video in the editor. We recorded at 240 frames per second. What does that mean? That in 1 second, the phone was able to take 240 pictures. That's really fast. That's a lot of pictures per second. When we put it into the editor, I can go through it frame by frame. So you can see here. Look, you can actually see the bullet, right? The little ball coming out perfectly. I'm going through it frame by frame. That means that between this position and this one, the ball traveled in 1/240th of a second. I'm not just taking a small part, but a bigger section. See, it went from 13 to 91. 13 to 91. What is that? It moved 78 centimeters in 5 frames, in 5 pictures. Let's do the math. The bullet traveled 78 centimeters, which is 0.78 meters in 5/240ths of a second. What does that mean? If we take 1 second and divide it by 240, we only use 5 little pieces of that. So it's much less than a second to travel that distance. The question is, in 1 hour, 3,600 seconds, how far would it travel? What should I multiply these two by? I divide by this 134,784 meters per hour, or to simplify, 135 kilometers per hour. It seems like a lot, but for a weapon, a .38 revolver will vary between 800 to 1,000 kilometers per hour. So it's a slow weapon compared to a firearm. But years ago, we did a speed test with several homemade guns here on Manual do Mundo. Take a look. The second fastest was the slingshot, which reached 101 kilometers per hour. The fastest of all was that little pipe slingshot where we put a balloon at the back, which reached 130 kilometers per hour. In other words, the gel gun is faster than all of that and shoots 10 projectiles per second. And that's exactly why it's going to be sacrificed, because I want to know how this thing is able to do that. It looks simple, right? Let's put on the glasses here and try to make it work. Up here in the front, there's a tube, which is where the little balls go in, and they're shot out this way. Back here, it looks like a piece of plastic hits the balls. I thought there was something like a compressor that released air. That doesn't seem to be the case, so let's take it apart further to find out the secret. It's in this thing. It does blow some air. Now it's time to really see the engineering, based on my experience opening things up. This is the moment when we see the little spring flying out somewhere. You'll never know how it was organized in here again, so you could say we're down to the last shots of this little gun. Did you get that? One thing is opening it, another is understanding how it works, but I think that's enough. Let's go. The little balls come out through this tube. They go down here on top and enter the tube. So the tip of this mechanism, this black tip, it's going to keep poking the little balls. That's what it's for, to switch them. Initially, it blocks all balls. But as it moves back, space opens, one ball drops and pushes the next forward, repeating the process. But the tip of this thing is hollow and releases air. This happens because this white piece back here works like a kind of injection stirring. Look, there's this black part, which is a piston. It goes in here and keeps moving like this, so it keeps blowing air onto the balls. Now, how does this whole mechanism manage to work? One punches the ball, the other pushes the air. Punches the ball, pushes the air over and over, because down here there are two racks. It's a set of little teeth that fit into the gears here, but they're special gears. It's these two. If you look really closely, you'll see that they're incomplete. This one has 4 teeth to move the black part, while the plunger one has 8 teeth. Since this is only half, but includes the full set, will it still work? These 2 parts have springs. This one in the front has a tiny little spring. I'll put it in place here so you can take a look at it. Look, pull the whole set forward, and the plunger of the syringe, it has a bigger spring, see? So, these 2 pieces, they're pushed forward. They want to go forward. And the gear that's going to pull the pieces back is really tough. Okay. It's not easy to do that. The big secret then is in the gear that's missing a tooth. The gear pulls the piece back, but there comes a point where there are no more teeth and the spring is pulling forward. It goes forward. Then the gear goes around again, pulls the piece back, and the spring pushes it forward. The number of teeth is different on the 2 gears because that black part, it goes just a little bit back and already nudges the ball, while the piston goes further back and gives the second hit that will push the air out. I'd like to see this working while it's open. I'm not sure we can, but I'll try. It's not easy to test it open because this cover that goes on top has several guides. Here, look, there are some rails that these parts use to slide. Without these rails, everything tends to explode. Everything goes flying, but that doesn't stop me from trying by putting a screwdriver up here so that the air jumps out. But who said we can't do it? Look at this. If all this effort isn't worth a like, I don't know what is to make all this work. We have 4 reductions here. In other words, it would be like having 4 bicycles, one connected to the other, all in the lowest gear. So, this engine spins many times just to fire once, and even so, the engine is really strong. It's not a regular engine. It's connected to a 7.4 volt lithium-ion battery. It's not just 2 regular little batteries. It's much more powerful. The question is if we can fix it, right? Look at the danger before we test it and see if it's working properly. My verdict about this thing here. I won't hide that it's a cool thing. Everyone here at Manual do Mundo, when they got this thing in their hands, wow. That's cool. It shoots far. I don't know, it's really fun. So if I were 10 years old, I would really want it. Shooting a few rounds with this little machine gun is a lot like airsoft or paintball. But for that very reason, it's also pretty dangerous. If it hits your eye without goggles, you'll likely end up in the emergency room in severe pain, if you're lucky enough to avoid permanent injury. One thing I almost did myself, which is really dumb, is that when this thing jams, it stops shooting. You want to look here to see if there's any problem. And of course, you look, And then what you just saw me do happens. And even with safety glasses, you must have noticed that I have a bad habit, which is lifting the glasses because they get dirty and all. And then I want to lift them to see better. And if I were playing with this thing, sooner or later I would forget the glasses lifted up. So, do I think this is a toy that should be treated like paintball or airsoft? Kids shouldn't play with it alone, since if an adult is likely to make a mistake and get hurt, a child will too. You can't use it on the street, since people without protective glasses, as well as dogs, cats, and birds, could be hit in the face with a gel. Could it be that I didn't do it here? Kaipura.